Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the session today, and thank you for Mobile Payments Conference for inviting me to participate in today's session. I'm joined today by Peter Gordon of US Bank, and we are going to talk about smart interactions and the future of banking. Excellent digital experiences that are powered, that are personalized and smart, set the stage for the future of autonomous banking. Today, we'll talk about how to empower customers through real-time financial insight and advice and pave the path for the future of banking through mobile-first experiences. So to get us started, the first question that I have for Peter is, earlier we spoke about how successful business models of the future center on being part of and providing value at the moment that consumers interact with technology. Can you give us some insight into how US Bank engages with customers around their money and helps them make better financial decisions?
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. I'm really excited to be here as well. And clearly, I have to start off, it's in this post-COVID world we live in. And, people ask me, what's changed in this post-COVID environment? And clearly, what I tell them from a digital, it's really just accelerated the plans we've had in place. So I think it's really important to say in this digital mobile-first world, that has been our plan at US Bank. We think about things from the consumer or the small business or the corporate first. So that experience, and I think you talked about what is the real, it's the moment of truth of when someone interacts with what we call the glass. That's above the glass, and that's either your mobile phone, mobile first, your screen, your Apple Watch, even could be an ATM screen, could be a point of sale device. These are the glass. This is the things that people act. And even today, as I talk to you on Zoom, this is the glass. This is the new glass, and we talk about, and we'll talk about that. I know we've talked about previously, but do it yourself, DIY. We're also talking about do it with you, as we're doing today. So it's really that moment of truth, and the key is in the digital world is providing the right data, at the right time, where a consumer can consume that information in a smart way to make them do things better. So here at US Bank, we think about it consumer first, small business first, corporate first, and then driving it through to what we'll call below the glass. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that and how we make that infrastructure real time and data rich for those humans, we call them.
Yeah, and that's really important. I think one of the things that we talk a lot about in the industry is how do we move away from competing on products and services and moving towards competing on experience. And I think the line of experience has gotten a lot wider when we start thinking about mobile devices, because they go with you in your everyday life at a moment that you're making a decision that has financial impact. And that truly should be the moment that we are engaging with consumers, whether they are in a store, which there's less of being in a store lately, but at any time that they're actually doing a checkout, how do we engage them and provide insight on not only the right way to make a payment, but the right utility to do so? So that's great.
Yeah.
The second question I have is, US Bank has shared that digital should be do-it-yourself, and the real power comes to life as we use data and make billions of smart interactions with customers. Can you share how you're leveraging the power of mobile and even the Internet of Things to create more meaningful customer interactions?
Yeah, Tiffany, great question. Again, just like you said, in this COVID world, we have this computer, this powerful computer, this mobile device in our hands. And what we're able to do in a mobile-first environment is take the data that is most relevant to the consumer. So to look at, in a consumer's life, a small business or even a corporate, to empower them. So using consumer bill pay as a real example. Today, we don't have a great experience if you think about how consumer bills get paid in a digital interaction. You may have a paper bill in your mailbox. That's not real time today. You may get an alert in your text. What we see in the future is really a rich environment where you get how much you owe, when you owe it, in a centralized location. So you can interact and you can pay it when you want in a real-time 24/7 environment. And I think that's really key, is how much you owe, when you owe it, and get back an acknowledgement. So the data becomes, it's a commerce and interactive, real-time interaction with the biller and the consumer, and they have that relationship. And just like today, it's 24/7, 365, and really a rich experience, and helps the consumer. What we as financial institutions have to take that data and marry it with credit products to allow consumers to have smooth out their payments from paycheck to paycheck, from billing cycle to billing cycle. And that's how we want to look at that. And then give back the consumer rich information of what they've paid, when they've paid it, and so they can plan there and feel like they have financial control over their consumer experience and consumer financial lives.
And I would also expect it's not only what to pay and when to pay it, but even perhaps in the future, how you should pay it, right? There's lots of different payment options, and depending on the type of transaction that you're trying to perform, it may be better for a consumer to do it one way versus the other.
Yeah, fantastic point. We really believe strongly in consumer choice. And so here in the U.S., I think it's important that we live in a commercially led environment. So as you know, we have cards, and now we have real-time payments, and we have Zelle, and there's others like Venmo and other things that we'll be able to pay. And the key is, it really is a consumer choice. And we're looking to make Zelle a really rich experience to allow consumers, and that's another avenue for choice. And it's different here in the U.S. I think most people don't appreciate that we're not going to have a regulatory-driven environment to say which ones you're going to use. There are in other markets. Brazil is launching next month a real-time payment where everyone will have to use their picks, one way of doing it. In India, they just use one network. Here in the U.S., we will have some differences, and it will evolve, and that creates some confusion, but we hope in the long term that's going to create a more robust and really better experience and more choices for the customers. And we at U.S. Bank really want to be at the forefront of providing choice to the consumers to allow them to how they want to pay it and in which method they want to use.
Yep, absolutely. As it relates to infusing help into the digital experience, how do you think financial institutions can continue to build trust as they interact with technology, specifically self-driven, automated digital experiences?
Yeah, another great question. So we think about it. We actually just launched last week our virtual digital assistant. So, everyone's pretty familiar with Amazon and the Echo and conversations with it. And we have a really robust, we really thought through of what are the things and how does a consumer want to interact with the glass? And now it's not the glass, it's the voice and the mobile and the power of you as a consumer want the to interact in a way that's normal. Just like you and I are having a conversation, you want to have it say, pay my bill, and bring up the list and say, well, which bill do you want to pay? And have a conversation. I think that's the key, and you'll see, and we are really excited about what we launched, because even when we don't know the answer, because you can't know everything a consumer wants, I think we've captured a great way to serve and say, well, we don't know, but here are what we think, and allow the customer, again, to feel in control, to try to serve them one time, and then if we don't, ask clarifying questions, just like you and I are having the conversation today. The better we do that, that is really the key, is just having the conversation, building that, and our mobile-first digital assistant is the first step in doing that. Really exciting.
That's great. With the COVID-19 pandemic, many financial institutions were forced to either recalibrate their brick and mortar presence by either shutting down or limiting the banking activities that could be done in a branch. Could you share with us how the sudden shift from bricks, meaning branch, to glass, meaning digital, has shaped your priorities and what this means to the future of banking?
Yeah, sure. First, let me just offer my hats off to our colleagues that were in the branches and are in the branches, because we still think it's an important part of the franchise for people to have human interactions. But as we know in this COVID environment, people who have never used a digital interaction in their life have now been forced to, whether they don't want to go out in public, and they may have comorbidities and they want to stay at home. And so now they have no choice but use these digital tools. And we've seen a vast shift. Whether it's, we're really proud of a few things when ranging from doing mortgage government assistance programs with PPP, doing mortgage forbearances, allowing you to set up programs or put your mortgage on hold, or whether asking for payment assistance for your credit card loans and leases. And if you think about it, we had those, we had digital experiences for those, but they were very deep in our, you know, we didn't want customers to know, we didn't want them to know. We didn't have a way for them to access it because it wasn't first and foremost. And then we had to bring it literally to the top of the glass. So have consumers, and when they logged on, the first thing we knew what they wanted to do is, you know, can you help me with my loan? I want to apply for PPP. And we put those things at the top of the glass and then gave them an experience where we think we were best in class. And I put out to all the colleagues at US Bank that literally worked, some people 24/7 to really serve our customers in ways none of us could have imagined at the beginning of this year. So really hats off to the folks behind the scenes that make it look simple and serve up these digital experiences that allow our customers who never used a digital tool in their life to be able to feel better. They have control. They could put their mortgages on hold. They could apply for PPP, or have a loan or lease have a gap in their payment. So it's been real transformational.
Yeah, and I think that you'll find, and I'll sort of use one of my own experiences here, that the people that did migrate to the digital channels will probably find that anything that they're doing in a digital environment is much easier and more convenient than them doing it in a branch. So if I sort of give an example of my own experience, I went into a branch a few weeks ago to open up a checking account, and the process was a little complicated only because there was name changes and other things associated with the marriage. But it took me 2 hours to open a checking account. And I know I could have done that online much quicker, really at any financial institution. But the fact that I had to go in, you know, it really highlighted for me that there is inefficiency sometimes in certain locations. And just by nature of doing something in a digital environment, you start to very quickly see the value of being able to do everything in a digital environment, and where it makes sense to be able to hand off to a human that can assist you with more complex questions or issues.
Yeah, really good point. You know, I think we look at, you know, you mentioned, so DIY, so do it yourself. And if you have those documents and you were sitting at home, and again, you could have uploaded those documents, you make that easy. And then if you have issues, we do believe in human interaction. You should be able to do it with me, and whether that's using the assistant, the virtual assistant, I said, which is really powered by AI, or whether you could do a chat with one of our bankers or a video session with one of our bankers. That's really where we see it going. Both do it yourself, and then when you need help, having a banker there, just like on the glass, like we're doing right now, and having this conversation over video, I think is transformational, that we all unfortunately have become used to this, but we're going to use the power of this to really accelerate how we interact with our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year you spoke about distributed social interactions. In the past, many financial institutions believed it was important to show up in the community. At that time, showing up meant that you had physical proximity. So you either had branches, you had community events, or you were able to pick up the phone and talk to someone in a contact center. And that really was the way that financial institutions counted on in order to build relationships in the community. As communities have become increasingly virtual, what role will mobile play in helping financial institutions connect with their customers in distributed social interactions? And specifically, how can they show customers that they support their communities and give them customers a way to even invest or donate to the communities themselves?
Yeah, really important and something that's really important to me and to U.S. Bank. As you know, U.S. Bank is based in Minneapolis. We're at the epicenter of Floyd and that real something that highlighted some of the disparities we have in the U.S. And what has really shown us, again, how digital and mobile can really participate, and we can be active in the community by allowing. I think one thing I've learned in having open conversations about this is it's about access. And what I found is whether it's the African American community or other minorities, they really don't feel like they have access to financial institutions. Access, they don't know the guy to call. They don't have the banker to call. And that is shameful in our society today. And what I think digital and the internet and mobile can do is allow that real social interaction. So we're working on tools to allow minorities and everyone to interact with us and give us feedback of how we can do better. And we're looking at how we can bring on additional minority vendors, and we're looking at a platform for how they can apply. And I really, if anything, I'll just leave it at this because I'll put a fine point. It's about access. And that is what I've learned, is that these communities don't feel like they may have, there may be access. We thought we provided access. There's Community Reinvestment Act, there's all these things. But at the end of the day, they don't feel comfortable in bridging that gap. And so we have to meet them where they are in two ways. And I think digital and mobile and creating a social environment where these communities feel comfortable that they can approach us how they want to be approached, and really have a conversation just like we're having today. And we can provide them access to financial services, banking accounts, loans, leases, the things that we really take for granted today. I'm hoping access is the key, and mobile and digital is the way we're going to lead with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that I'll share with you based on some research that we did in the beginning of the year at IT Group is one of the questions that I went out and asked consumers was how important it was for financial institutions to allow them to be able to invest in the community, either through marketplace lending, so meaning loaning amounts to another customer to support the community, and even being able to donate to charities through online or mobile banking. And it was over 4 in 10 consumers were interested in using that type of capability through their financial institution. So, you know, not only did we learn in the survey that it was really important when consumers considered doing business with a new financial institution, that they did what was good for the community and support the causes and the interests that were important to them, but it was equally as important to them to be able to give back to the community themselves. And that proved to be true much more for the younger generations. So that's great.
Yeah. One of the things, I'll just put a fine point, we have a product through Zelle that we have that allows, we use it for, the Red Cross uses it to accept payments. Anyone on the Zelle network can do a real-time donation, and we see nonprofits using that, and we have many in this day be able to put this on their website and allow payments through Zelle, and as we move real time. So I couldn't agree more. It's really important, and it's about that access. So whether you on Zelle or another network, that you can feel comfortable, we talked about before, and then you have access, and you can provide that donation in the way you want. We talked about customer choice, and again, key. And we hope Zelle will be one of those things that will really help give access to all.
Behavior that surprised you?
Tiffany, really great question. You know, we're here and we're going to talk. Yesterday, we had a conference about Zelle, and we talked a lot about what are the transactions on Zelle. And we've seen 100% year-over-year growth on Zelle. But I'll tell you, the one transaction that I saw that it just is still mind-boggling to me. We don't have, it's not like credit cards where you know exactly what a consumer is doing. In this case, we have to infer some of the data by the miscellaneous memo fields and the amounts and things like that. And the one thing working with early warning systems in EWS. They came up with groceries, and it was the fastest growing transaction on the network. And I was puzzled. I said, what? We don't do groceries with Zelle. How can you buy point of sale? And what it really was is social sharing of groceries. So
Wow.
in the pandemic, you go to Costco and you would buy for neighbors, family, and friends, go to the supermarket and share those bills, one person. And when we really didn't know about the pandemic, we found that, someone would send one person for their community. And it was social sharing of groceries. Try saying that 3 times, social sharing of groceries. Yeah, but that's remarkable. I saw that growth was really, you couldn't have envisioned that a year ago, for sure.
Well, I can say social sharing for groceries. I don't have an example of that, but I do have an interesting example of how I've observed Zelle being used out in the retail environment. So probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, I went out and got my nails done. And as I was checking out to get my nails done, I thought that I was going to tap my card. I thought I was going to tap and pay and leave. And as I got up there, the person that was ringing me up asked me if I had Zelle and wanted to know if instead of swiping my card or tapping my card, if I could just transfer money to them using Zelle. And so I thought for a minute that, maybe it's just the person that did my nails that wanted me to actually send them the money directly. But as I stepped away to walk out, I noticed that they also asked the person behind me in line to send them money through Zelle. So it wasn't even that it was just a single isolated case. There was definitely a situation for them where it made sense for them to use Zelle to actually get payment. I suspect that part of that just had to do with being able to pay people immediately that day versus having to wait. But yeah, it was really interesting. Not only did they figure out that Zelle was an easier way for them to get paid for the services, but they were consistently educating the market on what Zelle was and how to use it as part of that interaction. So interesting.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it shows you, we put these products out in the marketplace and, it's real humans that really take advantage, and it has to be right, as we talked about earlier, for the consumer and get that purpose. But in this case, the merchant, your nail salon, it's at the right price point where they want to use it versus some of the other methods. So consumer choice, but also merchant choice and allowing them to use it. Really interesting. Great example.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is you mentioned earlier that you had rolled out a virtual assistant. I would love to hear more about the virtual assistant and how that specifically plays into your digital strategy.
Sure. Well, so one of my peers, Ankit Bhatt, really led the effort at US Bank, and he was recently previewed on American Banker, and he talks about making it smart and having these interactions. And we talked about it a little bit where the digital interactions, so we said mobile first, and now it's voice first and voice enabled. And it has to be in this conversation, just like you and I are having the conversation. I think what him and his team and the user experience folks really focused on is talking to, not like you're talking to a computer, but you're talking to a person. And that's the real advantage. So when you say, I want to pay my bill, or in your case, if you were using Zelle, I envision that we're looking at this in the future. Right there, you could say, make payment. And now that your nail salon was in your Zelle list, it would say, you'd say, who do you want to pay? You'd say, pay my nail person, or the name of the salon. And that interaction would be very comfortable, normal, and conversational. And that natural language, that interaction is really, it's on the forefront, and we at US Bank are really proud, and we've been piloting it internally. So I've got to use it for a bit, and it's really powerful to get your balances, to pay bills, to do a lot of things that you do in your daily life. And now we just rolled it out just a month ago, and how that's going to evolve from there.
Thanks for sharing that example, Peter. I think that is really important. As I mentioned earlier in the year, we did a survey to find out consumers' interest in using a virtual financial coach. So one that could provide financial insight and help them meet a variety of financial goals, but also one that could use conversational banking to be able to have a two-way interaction with the virtual assistant to, of course, get advice and guidance. And one of the things that we found is consumers that were either in the millennial or the Gen X age brackets were interested in using the virtual financial coach. So about 2/3 of them were interested in using the coach, and they were interested in using the coach for a variety of reasons. So whether that was to track their finances, to create a savings plan, to optimize their financial health, to be able to reduce debt, and to even be able to increase their financial knowledge. We also asked them about things such as tax planning, planning for the unexpected, which I didn't anticipate at the beginning of the year that was going to become such a major theme in our life. But then also looking at how do you make more complex investments by working with an advisor. So sort of across the board, not only were the younger demographics interested in using this virtual financial coach, but they were also interested in using them for a variety of financial goals, and specifically getting real-time advice that aligned with those goals. So this is to a point where I'm going to wrap up the session, but I would love to hear from you. Is there one thing that you would like to leave the audience with today for them to think about for the remainder of the conference?
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. Big softball. And really, as you think about this conference, as you go forward, it's about, there's a lot of challenges out there today. Change is what we are dealing with on a daily basis. How we have to pivot from doing things, interactions remotely, and how we interact with our financial services. So think about change. And what I said at the beginning, I really, the way I feel very fortunate that in US Bank, nothing's changed except the acceleration of what our plans were. How we want to provide solutions and access, what we call above the glass, those interactions. So we talked about whether it's the minority communities or corporates, and we give them the data. And this will get later in the conference as we talk about, we have some real discussions on infrastructure, things we talk about below the glass, and how people like IBM and FIS and Fiserv have to make those available. The pipes are old in the US, and how we have to serve up that data so we can have these rich interactions and do all the exciting things that make consumers feel in control of their lives, and have them provide them products to with their financial lives for helping them smooth out their payments and their ability to pay on a monthly basis. So it's about the data, it's about access, and about the interactions that we are looking to make smart. And the virtual assistant that we launched is really first and foremost a key example of that. And I'll just close with how we look to leverage the payment channels with Zelle and RTP. We'll talk a lot about that in the conference throughout. So really appreciate the questions today, Tiffany.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll end with is smart interactions in the future of banking will really be driven by three key themes. So number one, engage. And as Peter talked a lot about today, it's really about creating data-driven, personalized mobile banking experience. The second thing that we will see is empowerment. So how do you help consumers take control over their finances by providing real-time financial insight and advice that aligns with their financial goals? And last, transformation. So building omni-channel experiences that really center around mobile being the hub of every financial interaction, while integrating the physical distribution channels to infuse that human help and advice. So as we talked about earlier, it really depends on the type of activity, and that will truly drive the interaction model. So in the future, mobile engagement will be driven by how these key themes support interacting with the customer in new and meaningful ways. And with that, that is the end of our session. And I would like to thank you all for attending today. I hope you all stay safe, healthy, and happy. Thank you.